Hello everyone, my name is Seth, here I am, and I'm going to be doing a review for you for the Monitor Audio Gold 56Gs. As you can see, I am not a professional reviewer of any kind, but I do like watching reviews, and unfortunately no one has done a review on this particular speaker. They like doing reviews on the Monitor Audio Gold 106G and then the floor standards, but not the smaller 50, the Gold 50, so here they are. Before I give you a review on the speakers here, I'm going to show you my kit so you can tell if I'm a credible witness or not. Here's my kit. I got a Benchmark DAC 3, and I have a Cyrus Power XR or Power X reference amplifier. I think it's 87 watts per channel at 8 ohms, something like that. I also have an iFi ZenDAC version 2, and that's just to send a Bluetooth signal to the Benchmark DAC. So there you go, nice and simple system. Before I start the speaker review, I just wanted to show you the room that I have the speakers in. I live in England, and in England we have very small rooms, and unfortunately my room is shaped like a pie, which is certainly not ideal. If you noticed, this is not an ideal speaker placement, but this is what I have to go with. However, I do have some sound treatments in the room to help out with the treble. I got some panels on the wall there, and then behind me I have more sound panels, and then another one on top of the couch. The wife is not happy about this one, but it really blocks the reflections because right behind your head because the wall is right up against my listening room. So that's what my listening room looks like. So now let's take a look at the build and features. The fit and finish of the Monitor Audio Gold 56Gs are really good. There's no gaps or anything like that in between the veneer. It's really nicely put together, and it's a beautiful finish. It looks like it has a little bit of lacquer on it to keep it a bit shiny. I will say, though, that these golds are not as good as some silvers I had way back in 2007. I had a pair of silver RS1s, which I think were made in England at that time. These are made in China. But the ones from 2007 were absolutely immaculate. They were beautiful. It looked like the wood was poured right over the speakers. It had curved edges, and you literally could not see any seams. I don't know how they did it. These, you can see some, it's very obvious that the grain goes different directions, so you know they're different pieces of wood. However, it's still really nice and really attractive. I do like them. Next, I'm going to talk about the features of the Monitor Audio Gold 56Gs. As you can see, I have the matching stands. They're ST2 model stands. They're really nice stands. I think they're pretty good looking stands. They're very solid. They didn't really ring when I got them, but I did put a little bit of filler in there. And now they are super solid. They don't ring at all. They have a nice feature. They bolt onto the bottom of the speakers, which is fantastic. If you have kids or pets, they won't knock them over. And these stands do fit a few other Monitor Audio models, but not every Monitor Audio. So here is the speaker up close. This is the Macassar wood veneer. I really like it. I will say I like the gloss piano black better, but at the hi-fi shop I listened to them. They were so scratched up, and that's the thing with the gloss black is they can easily get scratched. I did talk about how I knocked on the speaker stands. I also will show you I'll knock on the cabinet. They're really sturdy. They don't sound hollow at all. And best thing is, each speaker knocks about the same frequency, which is good because that means consistency in the models. The dimensions, I think, are a little bit deceiving. These are very diminutive speakers, as you can see. They're very compact. On the Monitor Audio website, the specs, I think the depth includes the depth of the terminals. So when you subtract that, it actually makes them a bit smaller, which is fantastic for me. And let me go to the back of the speaker here so I can show you the terminals. Here are the terminals. Their biamping is available if you believe in that. I'm not a big believer in it. I'd rather have one good amp rather than two not so good amps. So that's my theory. They did have some plates that joined the two binding posts there. I removed them. I didn't really know what they were made out of. They look kind of cheap, to be honest with you, so I just put some pure copper cable in between those to join them together. Also in the back you can see there is a port. So there's the port bung that I have in there. It comes with a port bung. You can either have it or not. I have a subwoofer. I have a Rel subwoofer hidden in the corner, so I like to have the port bug in there because I think it makes the transition between the subwoofer and the monitor audios a little cleaner, because if you don't have the port bung in, they're tuned to like 45 hertz or something like that, so you get kind of a bump around that frequency response. So with these bungs in, it's nice and clean. So there's the speakers. Let me go to the front of the speakers. They do have grills, which is fantastic because I have cats and I don't like dust in the tweeters or anything like that, so I always use the grills. Although admittedly they look really sexy without the grills. So I'll take the grills off. They are magnetic and they have a little arrow on the grill, so you just point that up and they stick right on. But there's the AMT tweeter, which is amazing. We'll talk more about that later. And there is the woofer. So let me get another look here. There you go. So you can see the difference between grills and no grills. So now we're going to get to the good stuff. We're going to get to what these speakers sound like. But I also want to talk about what speakers I had before. You may be interested in that. I had some Focal Aria 906s. I had them for about 9 years. I did like them, but the reason I got really tired of them, it took me a couple of years to really get the courage to go out and just buy another set of speakers. But the 906s were a bit bright, and it was made worse by dialogue enhancers on television shows. And what dialogue enhancers do is they increase the treble so that you can hear the differences between S's and F's. But what it does, it boosts the treble at the same time, and all that boosted treble in a tiny room just sounded really shrill to me, and it was really bad. So I originally went out to go listen to some Spendor speakers. They were supposed to be non-fatiguing. I didn't care for those. Then the man at the hi-fi shop had me listen to some PMC Prophecy 1s, I think they were, which are giant speakers and very expensive, another £1,000 more than these Monitor Audio Golds. The PMCs sounded fantastic. The soundstage was just amazing. They sounded absolutely huge, but the price range was a little bit too much, and I thought they had a little bit too much treble. So the next speaker I listened to was the Monitor Audio Studio 89, which I really, really liked, but that 3 driver configuration of the Studio 89s, I could hear mid-range treble, mid-range. It wasn't bad, but for that kind of money, I wanted a speaker that sounded good. So I then listened to these Gold 50s, and I thought they were better. They just sound like it's one speaker rather than 3 speakers like a Studio 89, if that makes any sense. So I went with these. So there's a little bit of history and why I chose these. I really enjoy the mid-range on these speakers. Previously with my Focal Aria 906s, the mid-range was like crazy exaggerated, which was nice. But when I listened to other speakers, it made the other speakers sound weird because I was used to hearing the Focal Arias. But those did have a really exaggerated mid-range, like I just said. These are much different. They sound so natural, and whether the voice is deep, if you got a close mic or you're far away from the mic or whatever it is, these just sound fantastic. So these are sophisticated and revealing speakers. Best of all, I would describe them as not bright. Some may call these Gold 50s clinical. I don't think so. I think the mids are natural, and I think the treble is highly detailed and realistic. I think the 6-inch woofer is actually the minimum that I would choose. I think anything smaller than that, the mids don't sound good, but these really do. The tweeters, the MPD3 tweeters, I think I called them AMTs earlier. I apologize. That's what Monitor Audio calls them. Are just absolutely fantastic. The horizontal sound stage is massive. The sound goes way beyond the boxes. So when you close your eyes, you can hear sound coming from way over there and coming from way over there. It's just amazing. But please note that these MPD3 tweeters have a limited vertical dispersion, so up and down. So if your ears are above the tweeters, such as when you're standing in the listening room, or if you're on the floor doing exercises like I sometimes do, these speakers can sound a little bit dark. Your ears need to be level with the tweeters, and I'm going to give you a little bit of a listen. I am not the biggest fan of sound tests on YouTube because I don't think they're really realistic. It depends on the phone that somebody's using or their microphones. Like mobile phones typically have really bad mics and they have cheap AD converters, and then depends what DAC you have in your headphones and your speakers and all that stuff. So there's so many variables. So I don't think it's a really good way to listen to review a set of speakers, but I'm going to show you what the MPD3 tweeter sounds like, because I want you to hear what it sounds like at the proper level, which is ear level, and then what it sounds like when you move way above axis. So again, left to right, you can go anywhere in the room. These tweeters are amazing. Up and down is a different story. So I'm going to play a song for you at ear height, and then we're going to move up. Okay, I'm going to stand up now. Moving slow, we're just killing time, and we know it's really reserved. And back at normal level. Surrender to your love, surrender to your heart, surrender. We are swimmers. I hope you're able to hear the difference in the sound, in the horizontal and vertical dispersion of those tweeters. I think they actually work really good in my room because I have a very small room and it's very bright. So what happens is, because there's less treble going up into the air, up to the ceiling, and then down to the floor, there's less reflection and less treble. I think, quite honestly, a dome tweeter will give you a better dispersion all around. But the dome tweeters, to me, tend to sound a little bit bright and will give you, will make a bright room worse. So I hope that explanation helps. I really hope my description of these speakers, of what they sound like, helped you. I know I'm not a professional reviewer. I don't have a bunch of fancy jargon I can throw at you and try to impress you and confuse you. I'm just an ordinary guy who likes really good sounding music. But one thing I wanted to talk about before I end this review are crossovers, because that's what I learned the most about when I was buying these monitor audios. What I didn't realize until recently was that cheaper speakers, or I should say, most speaker designs purposely make the crossovers boost the treble starting at about 8 kilohertz. So what this does, it increases air and perceived clarity, so perhaps this attracts listeners with less seasoned ears. I'm not really sure. But what happens is the boosted highs, they make the treble sound edgy and harsh, especially on bright recordings, and it exaggerates sibilance during speech. So if voices have been run through a dialogue enhancer, like I was mentioning before, and there's an extra bit of treble in there, these monitor audios still sound good. And I really can't believe that making crossovers that deliver a flat treble response are more expensive to design and manufacture than crossovers that boost the treble. So maybe listeners who are interested in speakers that cost £1,800 or way over 2,000 US dollars, maybe they just prefer natural treble, and Monitor Audio is taking advantage of listeners like me because they're giving me a nice flat crossover rather than one with boosted treble, and they're trying to make me think that it costs more money to do it. Like I said, I don't believe it. One more thing about these speakers is the impedance. So the impedance, these are rated at 4 ohm speakers. All the reviews and measurements I could find on these Gold 50s say that, I'm sorry, if you look in the manual, it says that the minimum impedance is 4 ohms. So a minimum 4 ohm impedance speaker does not mean it's a 4 ohm speaker. I'd say these are probably 6 ohm speakers, but I think Monitor Audio likes to advertise them as 4 ohms because you got to have a serious amplifier to play a 4 ohm speaker. Most amplifiers can't handle 4 ohms and they're just going to burn up. But I will say, even though you could run these, I think, safely with an 8 ohm amplifier, you really need to have a high quality amplification for this. You don't want to use an AV receiver. I don't think. You want something really good, like an integrated amp, or even better yet, separates. And then these speakers are going to sing. So, in short, I think these are amazing speakers. I can honestly say that I love them, and they'll likely be my last set of speakers ever, at least in this room, just because of my age. And these should last 15, 20 years, like I will. And there's also the rule of double. Don't forget the rule of double. If you're trying to, whatever your speakers are, if you're trying to get something better than the speakers you have, in order to guarantee they're going to be better, you need to spend double. So I have heard that before, the rule of double. I totally agree with that. And that works for any piece of stereo kit. If you have $1,000 amplifier, if you want a noticeably better improvement, you're going to need to spend $2,000. Same with a pair of speakers. If you're like me and you had some Focal Aria 906s, which at the time were $1,000 US dollars, although I paid a lot less than that, you're going to need a pair of speakers that cost $2,000 to sound significantly better, and that's what I have done, and I don't regret it. I love it. I hope this review helped. I don't really know if I'll do any more, but go listen to some speakers. Don't let anybody convince you to buy something just because they say it's good. Go out and listen for yourself. Anyway, hope that helps. Take care.